Hey guys, welcome back to R.M.Aviation today. Today we'll be discussing the Japan Airlines Flight 123. The disaster is a significant tragedy in the event of aviation history, and the very complexity of why it happened that can still be understood through the sequence of events, engineering failures, and human factors involved. Let's have a look. The background of the aircraft. The aircraft type was the 747, which is a Boeing, the SR-46, a special version of the 747, designed for domestic Japanese routes. It had a relatively high number of passenger seats, over 500, and was equipped with specialized modifications suited to the domestic flights, which were typically shorter than international ones. Previous incident. The plane had previously been involved in an incident where it experienced a tail strike. Tail strikes occur when the tail of an aircraft contacts the runway during takeoff or landing, potentially damaging the rear of the aircraft. The root of the cause. The rear pressure bulkhead failure. Structural damage and improper repair. The root of the cause of the disaster lay in the flawed repair that had been carried out on the aircraft's rear pressure bulkhead, which is a critical structural component that separates the pressurized cabin from the unpressurized tail section. The bulkhead ensures that the aircraft's structural integrity in the event of the sudden pressure loss. In 1978, the tail strike had occurred, and during the repair process, the maintenance workers at Japan Airlines had used improper techniques to fix the damage. Significantly, rivets used in the repair were not processed and not installed correctly, and the structural integrity of the rear pressure bulkhead was compromised. The damage was overlooked, and during the inspection of the repair did not meet safety standards. Fatigue and rupture. Over the years, pressure cycles where the aircraft interior pressurizes and depressurizes during flight cause fatigue to weakening the bulkhead. This had gradually developed the cracks and ultimately caused the rear pressure bulkhead to rupture during Flight 123's ascent. What happened during the flight? The catastrophic sequence of events. On the fateful flight, Japan Airlines Flight 123 took off from Narita International Airport in Tokyo. Shortly after takeoff, the following sequences of events unfolded. The decompression. The rupture of the rear pressure bulkhead caused explosive decompressurization of the cabin and led to a massive pressure loss in the rear of the aircraft, and decompressurization occurred. The tail section of the plane was severely damaged, and critical control cables for the rear aircraft's rudder, the crucial flight control surface that stabilizes the plane's yaw, was severed. Damage to the tail. The plane's vertical stabilizer, the large fin at the rear of the plane of the aircraft, which was damaged and detached during the decompression. With the rudder and vertical stabilizer functioning properly, the pilots had no control over the aircraft's yaw, side-to-side movement. This caused the aircraft to enter a violent, uncontrolled rolling motion that was impossible to counteract with normal flying controls. Loss of hydraulics. The decompression and damage to the tail section also led to the loss of hydraulic pressure in the aircraft's control system. Modern aircraft rely on hydraulic systems to operate flight controls, and without hydraulic power, the pilots could no longer make fine adjustments and control their aircraft's pitch. The pilots' response: remarkable efforts to save the plane. Despite the catastrophic events of the damage to the aircraft, the crew did not give up. The pilots, led by Captain Masaki Katasuyu and First Officer Yoshio Tsukada, worked tirelessly to control the plane. They were able to stabilize the aircraft in time using a combination of manual inputs and rudimentary control techniques. Efforts to control the aircraft. Since the rudder and tail stabilizer were inoperative, the pilots tried to manage the aircraft's yaw using the engines, adjusting throttle inputs and trying to balance the plane's direction. They also had to use the ailerons to control the roll, but they were only partially effective without hydraulic assistance. The pilots could not fully prevent the plane from rolling left and right, but they were able to stabilize it for about 30 minutes despite immense difficulty. Attempted emergency landing. After realizing they couldn't return to Narita, the pilots began to head towards Osaka Itami Airport, known as Osaka International Airport. However, they were facing rapidly depleting fuel supply, and they knew that landing would be crucial. The final moments and crash. Fuel loss. Despite their best efforts to manage the aircraft system and stabilize the flight path, the aircraft was running out of fuel. The crew was battling the loss of control, the aircraft system failing one by one, and heavy rolling motion continued. Crash into Mount Takamagahira. I may have pronounced that incorrectly, so don't judge me on that one. With no control over the plane and fuel running out, the pilots were unable to make it to Osaka. The aircraft crashed into Mount Takamagahara, about 100 kilometers or 62 miles from Tokyo. The impact caused a massive fire and most of the aircraft was destroyed. Survival of 4 passengers. Remarkably, despite the severity of the crash, 4 passengers survived, though they were severely injured, and it was widely believed that their survival was due to their position in the rear of the plane, where they were somewhat shielded from the impact and fire. The investigation. A deep look into the failures, National Security Board findings. The investigation led to Japan Airlines Safety Board finding the root of the cause, and the crash was improperly repaired in the pressure bulkhead. The damage of the structure was a result of a previous tail strike and faulty repair, which didn't meet industry standards and led to failure. The damaged bulkhead caused the decompression, which led to the failure of the aircraft's control systems. Maintenance failures. The investigations also pointed to the significant lapses in Japan Airlines maintenance procedures, as the company failed to properly inspect and address the compromised bulkhead. It also noticed that the airline had a systemic issue with the maintenance procedures and contributed to the failure. Human error. Though the maintenance crew was found to have made an error in their repair process, the investigation did not find any evidence of negligence on the individual level. However, the airline's failure to rectify the situation once it was identified pointed to the organizational shortcomings in safety culture. Aftermath and legacy changes in aviation. Reforms in the maintenance practices. The disaster prompted sweeping changes in the aviation safety, particularly concerning maintenance practices, inspection of aircraft. The event highlighted the importance of properly repairing your aircraft, ensuring that all the repairs were rigorously checked. The FAA and other aviation authorities around the world introduced stricter guidelines for inspections of maintenance of aircraft components, especially those related to structural integrity. Impact on the Boeing and aviation community. The Boeing 747 itself was not found to be fundamentally flawed, but the accident raised questions about the aircraft's ability to withstand catastrophic structural damage. It also emphasized the importance of redundant safety systems and the need to look through and check on aircraft structural components, particularly after accidents like tail strikes. In conclusion, the Japan Airlines Flight 123 disaster was an incredibly complex tragedy caused by a combination of engineering flaws, human error, and maintenance failures. The sheer scale of the crash was one of the deadliest in history, led to significant changes in aviation safety practices, particularly regarding maintenance procedures, safety inspections, and airline accountability. The disaster remains a painful chapter in aviation history and a reminder to the importance of safety in the aviation industry. Please leave a comment, as I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. And like and subscribe, as we'll be releasing a few more of these kind of videos over the next coming week. So like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you.